All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Serious Angler podcast. As always, I'm your host, Bailey Eichbrett, and joined with me is not the captain. The captain is sipping margaritas on the beach in Florida, but we got a guy that kind of looks pretty similar to him, naming himself the Jabberhammer. But we got Mr. Paul Roberts from the old our friends over at the Bass, the Bass and Beers podcast, and
Bass and
dude.
Brews. Bass and Brews.
Yes. Yeah, so it was on my tip of my tongue, but I was like, wait, did I screw it up? Like, I've been on it like twice, and I'm like, wait, I don't want to screw it up. But I just started right through some random crap. But dude, we've been trying to get you on here as a co-host for what, like 3 months now at least. But we finally got the time to get you on here. What's going on, buddy?
Man, nothing. It's heating up down here in North Carolina. We got fish pretty much moving off into the postpone. And so, I'm getting excited to fish again because for whatever reason, I suck at catching fish in the spring, unlike, the majority of the population.
Are they done spawning over there on Jordan and Sharon Harris?
They do, but I'm colorblind, so I can't half damn see to sight fish them,
Oh, dude, that's like an episode in itself of like sight fishing while you're colorblind. Like, you're looking for like a white plastic and you're just whipping out like purple or some shit. Like, yeah.
Well, no, it's not even the lures. It's seeing the damn fish in the water. You gotta understand.
It doesn't glow for you?
Huh?
The beds don't like stand out to you even when you're colorblind?
Well, I mean, we got dirty water down here, but I mean, we talking about 1.5 foot, maybe 2 on good days, 2 foot of clarity. Jordan right now looks like the damn chocolate river in Willy Wonka. So I mean, it ain't easy to fish colorblind in dirty water.
Oh man, I didn't even think about that. I've never I always forget about that perspective. Like, there's a bunch of anglers that are damn good that are like colorblind, and I always wonder how in the world do y'all do it? Because from that perspective, but also like choosing your baits, like.
Well, see, that's we won't get into this, but short answer of it is colorblindness means you can't distinguish colors together. And the easiest way I can say, if you look at a topographical map of a forest that has a mix of pine trees and hardwood trees, you can tell species and all this different stuff by the colors of the trees. I have a hard time seeing that. That makes sense. It's hard to explain. I wish they made colorblind glasses for people who weren't colorblind, so y'all could see what it was like. I mean, it ain't necessarily fun, but it ain't detrimental to like driving. If it's not at the top or the bottom, I just hit the gas at a red light. No, but I don't know, man. Fishing in the springtime is just tough for me. I don't, but we get these summer bites where I can start deep cranking and fishing some structure and following that around. And for whatever reason, it seems I seem to do a little bit better then.
Huh.
How you been? You had a lot going on the last couple of weeks.
Man, I'm finally, I thought this past Saturday when we had our first local tournament up here in New York, it was going to be my first day to breathe and kind of like relax a little bit, take everything in. Cause like as soon as, I won on that one Sunday, pretty much a bunch of people were staying that night down there in Eufaula and maybe starting their commute to wherever they came from the next day. But I started my 15-hour drive right then. I headed straight towards Buffalo as soon as I left that place. And, from then I was working the next day, and doing a crap ton of podcasts and all that jazz. Like, I didn't get a chance to breathe. So I was like, that Saturday was going to be my opportunity to actually, take a deep breath. And of course my ultra competitive instincts kick in and I don't get a chance to breathe. And, was one I was just focused on trying to win the dang thing. And then the next day was like a relaxing day. We got out with somebody, a buddy of ours, Mr. Sean Budiak from X2 Power. And we went out smallmouth fishing. That was like a day I could there's a couple times where I didn't have a line in the water and I was just kind of sitting there in the passenger seat and kick back until it started pouring rain, which is lovely.
But hold on, back up a little bit for the folks that don't know. He did win that tournament.
Yeah, I won the local tournament.
The local,
But,
he won that one too. So I was telling him this earlier, and he said not do it, but I'm doing it anyway. We had the new Champ Bailey in the house.
I will never earn as much as the real Champ Bailey from like the Denver Broncos ever will, but I'm trying not to like talk about the wins here because our guest today is kind of like taking that pedestal completely away. Like he's on a whole other level of winning right now. So
yeah,
we're gonna get into that in a second here when we bring him on. But I had a quick story before it fades away from my ADHD memory here. When we're talking about the color blindness, one of the funniest moments, like pre-tournament morning, like when you launch and you're waiting for the first cast. So when one of my buddies looks over to me and he's holding up this watermelon craw. I think it was like a chicken craw. And he goes, "Is this chartreuse?" I was like, I was laughing so hard. And I'm like, because he's colorblind. I'm like, dude, that is not chartreuse.
Look, you know how you like to talk about flake, whatever you want to call it. And if you're going to get beat off a purple flake versus red flake, how you're just quitting that day.
Yeah, I just don't care.
I do not care one bit because it like, unless it's some kind of shiny silver metallic flake, I don't know. So that's why I tell people I ain't big on color. They're going to bite the blue one. They're going to bite the red one 8 out of 10 times.
Well, I'm curious to get our guest take on the whole color deal. See if he's one that's like, we'll dial it into that minute purple flake, or if he's just like watermelon, green pumpkin, white or black or blue. That's it. Right. I'm very curious to see. But without further ado, let's bring him on here, Mr. Eric Siddiqi. What's going on, champ?
Nothing much. Good to be home.
Yeah, it's good to be home, and it's good to get you back on the show, man. It's been a minute.
Yeah, for sure.
You said what, 6 out of 7 weeks that you've been just grinding away from home and cashing checks?
Yep, that's about right.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. First of all, what is your, because I'd recently just switched my vehicle. What is your tow vehicle? Are you a trailer guy or not trailer guy? Are you an Airbnb guy or are you a camping kind of guy, if that makes any sense?
Well, I went without a trailer for a long time, and I started having to carry Vicodin with me in case I threw my back out trying to put that heavy PA-14 in the truck. So I decided to go with the trailer. For a long time, it was kind of like a rite of passage. If you hadn't helped me lift my ridiculously heavy PA-14, then you weren't a real kayak fisherman. So after that point, I decided it was time to get a trailer. So I ended up just buying a Sea-Doo trailer and kind of converting it. And it's worked out pretty well. I blow a few bearings here and there with how many miles and how fast I drive, but I'm used to changing them now, so it's all right.
Speed demon.
I got to make up for my slowness somehow, so I drive pretty fast.
How is the traveling out of Cincinnati? It's a lot more south than I think folks realize.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's pretty central. It's southwest Ohio, so about 5 hours from any Tennessee River Lake, and about 5 hours from St. Clair. So it's not too bad. It's pretty good central place to be a kayak fisherman or tournament fisherman in general.
Heck yeah. Well, dude, I want to catch up with you a little bit here because it's obviously been a crazy few weeks, basically 2 months since I last hung out with you at the Classic. And obviously you got that nice looking trophy behind you there over your left shoulder. Mm-hmm. And we know you won the day one at the KBF event this past weekend at Gunnersville. But like, dude, the past few weeks that you've been, traveling and grinding, what other events have you been fishing? Have you gotten any other trophies, that sort of deal? So we know that, if Eric Siddiqi's in a tournament, there's a good shot that you're going to be taking a trophy home. But, talk to us. What you been up to beyond those 2 tournaments?
I took home the Queen City at Santee Cooper the first day there. So that was good. Man, give you props for Eufaula. I hate that place.
I don't know.
I mean, that was the first time using the live scope, and I didn't realize until I got to Gunnersville that I never saw a bass on that thing the entire time I was there.
Oh man.
Were
I'm
you
like,
fishing
oh,
for him?
that's what a bass looks like on this thing.
Yeah.
Were you fishing for him though?
Apparently not. I caught a crappie and a catfish on the first day.
Hmm.
Ended up going shallow and picking off a little 12-incher or something on a cypress tree, like later in the day.
Hmm.
But I was determined I was gonna stay deep. I didn't have a good shallow or deep bite, so I was like, I'm just gonna stay deep and see if I could find some, and I didn't find any. So I
Yeah.
give you props for
It
finding them. I
happens.
don't know how you did it.
Yeah, dude, I wanted to go deep. I would have truly loved to, but like it just wasn't happening. Like I think it also helped that I dumped like a 7+ pounder in the first 10 minutes shallow. So I was like, okay, I should probably stay shallow until like
Yeah.
I'm told otherwise. But dude, I mean, beyond that, like you said, you've been grinding for 6 out of the past 7 weeks. You went to Santee,
Yeah, I
obviously. You
gotta
were
gotta check at Grand Lake for the Bassmaster, and then uh, second day at Caddo was right there. So yeah, that was Caddo was tough too. A lot of those great springtime fishermen. I couldn't find any water kind of to myself at Caddo. I felt like it was just packed in. That's why I went day two. I went over to Bissano and was able to. Yeah, I think it was like ninth or something. Fishing over there, but if I would have went where I wanted to. The full day there, I put up, I think it was like 90 inches and or a little over that. I had a bunch of 19s um, that I caught in half the day over on Bissano. I went and looked a little further down the lake, and it was kind of blown out. And I went back up to where I really wanted to be, where I'd found fish in practice, and I started hammering on them. So I think I should have. Never know what might happen. Hindsight's 2020, and you got to make all the right decisions if you're going to beat these guys every
right.
tournament. So, but
Dude, that's one
you
thing
know,
I'm looking like with talking Cato. Now that I've qualified for TOC, is being in that tournament with only 50 people. I think
that's
that's
going
one
to
thing
be.
I might be looking forward to most than
Mhm.
like the actual like tournament itself. Is just like having a tournament with only 50 people.
Yeah, that's going to definitely change things.
It's like a
Yeah.
club tournament, except with the best angler from every club in the country.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
That's one thing that'll be interesting to look at. I don't think I've looked at it like from last year, but like from the past TOCs, like which state had the most representation. That would be pretty interesting to look at, see if there is. But um, dude, really fast, because I wanted to ask you this a while ago, like while we were having beers at the Classic. But like, have you had anyone reach out for like a beard, non-endemic sponsorship yet?
Beard?
Like a beard, yeah, like because
Yeah,
you got probably
yeah,
the best beard on the kayak tour.
yeah. Actually, I have.
Sorry,
It's
Paul. Sorry, he's like legit on the kayak tour. You're just like part time, buddy.
Oh yeah, kayak tour, sure. I don't know. Jordan Marshall got a nice beard now.
I don't know.
yeah,
Eric's just so well kept and like
Yeah,
it's like
all right, yeah, okay. There's yeah. His is nicely trimmed and manicured, and Jordan's is Jordan's
yeah.
country. It's
have you
country
had
Yeah,
style.
anyone reach out?
Detroit Grooming actually. I reached out to them because I've used their products for so long, and so I reached out to them, and they were like all about it. So they decided they were going to sponsor me. Even gave me
Hmm.
a promo code, Fishing Beard. So if you go on their website and want to order some
Hell
stuff
yeah.
and try it out, Fishing Beard is my promo code for that.
Hey, if it'll make sure I can get like a legit beard and more like Eric's than my like can't go near a school beard that I have going here, then I'll have to use that promo code. But dude, one thing I was thinking about though, you'd have a badass handlebar if you were to ever get rid of the beard.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to go down this rabbit hole, but I was like, I meant to like tell you a while ago, and I
Yeah.
completely forgot. But
I was thinking about
Bailey, if
going
you
with
just
the mustache like Mr. Red, but the
yes,
Reds are so terrible that this year I don't think I can do
yeah, you don't want that mojo going for you.
it.
Bailey, if you quit shaving, yours will grow in here in the next year or two. I promise.
I don't know, man. I've tried that whole not shave thing, and it just gets worse every day.
But there's a point. There's a point that you just got to close your eyes and pretend it's not bad, and then one day you'll open them up and you'll be like, "Man, this is awesome."
See, I'm I'm cool with that part. I can do that. It's more of the fiance gonna kick me out of the house for having such a horrible mustache.
Look, you got to do it before fiance turns into wife, because then you have no, like, you lose all say then.
Yeah, but we have a good thing going, so I don't want fiance to turn into no fiance or fiance before wife. So that's my thing.
I told mine I was so damn good looking I had to hide the purdy to keep the women off of me after we got married, so I wasn't gonna shave anymore.
Oh, see, I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna use that.
Good luck. Good luck. It's got to be true though. It's got to be true.
Yeah, I can't back that up, unfortunately. But Eric, dude, I'm pumped to get you on here because, obviously you've gotten a lot of success so far this year, but it's not just this year. Like in the past, however many years that you've been tournament fishing, since I really started heavily following kayak fishing, you've been at the forefront, like from Hobie Worlds to, KBF, all that jazz from the start that I've, 5, 6. I mean, how many years have you been doing the kayak stuff? Like almost full time?
My first big tournament was the end of 2015 on Toledo Bend, and then the next year, my second tournament was the first KBF National Championship on Kentucky Lake in 2016, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken.
7 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So one of my biggest things I wanted to get you on here to talk about was practice, because I think in kayak fishing, there's a lot of different theories, and there's a lot of different things I think that work for different folks, but a way to, when you're like yourself traveling, 6 out of 7 weeks at a time, fishing tournaments after tournaments, a way, if you have a process to consistently try, or at least put yourself in position to stay successful. And I'm sure this can vary, depending on location and lakes you're at. But, like when you're traveling, do you have like just a general process, when you go to a different body of water weekend after weekend in terms of practice? Or does it kind of, obviously vary with different bodies of water that you go to?
It definitely varies. It can get tough. It feels like sometimes right when you figure out one place, then you got to start working on figuring out the next one. But I do a lot of map study, like before I ever get to the lake. A lot of looking at ramps and trying to find those sneaky little ramps, and looking at contours. Like, I like the Fish Smart apps. They're not cheap, but
it's one thing a lot of people don't.
It's so detailed.
Yeah,
I know, it's so detailed. I mean, if I'm gonna be spending all the money traveling to a tournament, paying the entry fee and everything else, then just paying $30 for a map that's as detailed as it is nothing to me. So, and I like to use that along with Navionics and other maps, and kind of use everything I have at my disposal to try to figure a lake out.
Are you do you use YouTube or like the recent posts on Instagram type of deal or anything like that to kind of get an idea of what's going on, or are you just straight up map study?
No, I don't really look at anything else too much unless I'm hanging out with Cody Milton. He's got old Bassmaster tournaments and everything else running on his wall nonstop before any tournament we go to, months before even. So, but yeah, I don't pay too much attention to that. I would say I don't want any bad habits, but I'm not big on watching any of the pros right before we go there or anything like that either. Outside of maybe, like I remember a tournament last year on Pickwick where the pros were just there, and I had heard where some of the pros were doing well, and it was where I was planning to fish, so I went and watched and saw that my spot was not going to work out because it was going to be blown up, because that's exactly where all those guys were. So only to use where I don't want to fish. Sometimes I'll watch that stuff, but I don't really. Yeah, I kind of just look at it. I feel like I could find the fish myself. I kind of just break down the body of water myself and decide.
That's always one thing with the Elite Series tournaments that are on YouTube that I find is, I think, an interesting resource depending on how you use it, but also like pretty crappy for those guys in turn when they do the lay of the lake and they show you where every guy is. Where it's when you got one guy in the middle of the freaking lake on you follow, then it's like, okay, that's one thing, pretty hard to figure out where exactly he's fishing. But you got one guy way up a creek and it's like, it's obvious if he's doing well with what he's fishing. If I was that guy, I'd be like, man, this is my living. Like, this kind of sucks. Like, that's always been kind of interesting.
Right. For me. One thing I will do sometimes if I'm going to a lake and I'm thinking about throwing something or doing something, I'll look up a Bass U video and just watch something that relevant to like what I'm thinking about doing. And usually more than anything, it just reinstills that, you know, what I was thinking about doing is the right thing, which is just a little extra confidence for you,
Mhm.
you know? So it might not change what I'm planning on doing, but it gives me a little more confidence that what I'm thinking is the right thing sometimes. So that's
Yeah, and they
something
might
I
mention
also do
something that
sometimes.
you're not thinking of. Like they'll mention
Right,
99% of what you're thinking, but then there's that one little tidbit
right.
that could, you know, help in the
Hmm.
long run. Then that subscription is totally worth it for folks that I've had a few folks ask if I have a Bass U subscription or if it's worth it. It is. It is
It is.
100% worth
Yeah.
it because there's some juice in there in that subscription.
Hmm.
Paul, are
It'll
you gonna say
definitely give you some
something?
ideas, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On your map study, when you're doing that before you get to the water and get on the water planning, are you looking for areas, you know, where you think the fish are going to be that set up good for what you want to do? Or, you know, are you looking at where fish potentially should be and just get there and then figure it out from there? Or are you trying to find something that you want to do through your map study?
It depends on the lake and the time of year, but generally, I like to look for things that are going to set up for what I like to do. But you know, depending on the time of year, I'm going to definitely be looking at areas that I think that the fish should be that time of year, and try to find the best areas that I can for that. Um, and then try to see how close a ramp is. A ramp's right next to it. It's usually not something that I really like. You know, I'd rather find one that's a little further away that it's going to take some time to get to, some effort. You know, so that it's not going to be loaded up so much with boats and whatever.
Yeah, that's kind of the concept I like to run into tournaments with is like try to find something that's a decent ways away from a ramp. And when you'd mentioned in your Champlain tournament, I think it was last year or the summer prior when you were like going through 3-4 footers to get to Vermont, because I
That
think
was
they only
stupid.
let you launch on the New York side, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that I was like, at least I have like the guy that keeps winning. At least I have the same sort of game plan in terms of practice that he does.
That
Uh,
was one of the dumbest things I've ever done. Been that. I was a little worried in that one. Not gonna lie. It wasn't 3 4 footers. They were. It was the worst thing I've ever seen. Like if I took my eyes off it for 1 minute, I was flipping in there. I can promise you, there wasn't a boat out there. So I don't know. I wouldn't. I don't know if I would have made it back in if I would have flipped out there.
Mm.
Yeah, that was the craziest part because the
It was
winner,
bad.
not to get sidetracked here, but like the winner flipped like 3 times.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, I was like, wait, what? How did
Yeah.
you flip and like you're still able to submit pictures? Like, what in tarnation are you using for a phone? Like,
Well, if
I
I
had the
forget
right
my
idea.
towel, my hands are wet from touching the fish on a sunny day. I can't do anything with it, and he's over there in the water. That's insane.
dude,
Yeah.
that's the part I think I hate the most about kayak fishing tournaments is when you're like holding the fish and you're getting a net or whatever, your hands are all wet and you're trying to take a picture and you can't touch your screen because your hands are wet. I hate that part because then you go and you wipe
Right.
off your phone and get it dry in your hands and the fish flops all over and it's like when you had it perfect.
Start
And
over.
yeah, you start getting
Mhm.
pissed at the fish. It's like you get the one fish that
Yeah.
keeps popping his mouth open and like I will punch you in the face. Like I am
All
not
right.
afraid. Like
One of those ones that just seizure.
Yeah.
yes,
Just like
yeah.
little.
Or when they go nose first down into the Hobie drive, and you got to try to
Oh
wedge them
yeah.
out, and you can't get them. I got 2 tips. One, take you a little grab one of your wash rags up out the closet, take that widget and leave it by your seat. And two, at least on the iPhone, if you have an up-to-date iPhone, you can say, "Hey Siri, take a photo," and she snaps that photo right then and there.
Somehow, and I don't know how he does it, but Josh Stewart has his phone set up to where
Oh,
he'll hold his phone up and he'll go, whiskey, 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 and it takes pictures. And I still don't know how he's got it set up that way, but I'll
That's
be on the
amazing.
phone with him. He's
You can
doing
make
that.
some funny words for that.
I don't know. I don't know how he does it, but
That's
I
hilarious.
think he's just faking it. I don't even know if he's actually taking pictures. I think he's just doing a mess with me.
So like 4 years ago, I made a clown of myself because I actually made a video on it and I got torn up quick. So I learned fast about it. But on my local series, local series, they didn't really care much for the location service because they were going on the honor code. And it was like I think it was the same time that Eric, when you said you're starting fishing the national tournament, it was like 2016. So it was like 9 of us in a tournament, and like we're all like buddies. So it's like an honor code. I would take videos of my fish and I'd screenshot from the video of like a picture of that fish on the board. And this was like me being like the young, like quote unquote YouTube aspiration type of deal. And I made a video of like, it's really easy to take a video of your fish and screenshot of it. And I got torn to shreds. Like if people think you can do that. But like realistically, it's a super easy way to like not get a bad picture, because if you have a video going the whole time, it's a great way to, not miss it. But at the same point in time, I don't think you can do location services.
Right. Yeah. I know people have got fish DQ'd for, I guess, the old iPhones used to, when you hold it, it would take a bunch of pictures, and now when you hold it, it'll do a video. So I've had some people, I've had that messing people up, and they've.
Well, if you have water on your hand too, and it gets that button, it'll hold it. And that I'm gonna go find that video and throw it up on KBN and be like, "Look at this guy right here."
Oh, me? No, I deleted it.
I deleted it.
I think in the first 15 minutes, I had like 10 comments of people telling me I was an idiot, and that's not the case. And so I was like, delete.
Oh man, yeah.
But I'm willing to admit when I was wrong. So here's what lesson learned. But not to. I mean, here we go, getting sidetracked already. So
you
like
invited the wrong one on here to keep you on track. I just want you to know.
Oh, dude, that's what this whole platform's on. We're all about rabbit holes. Yeah, we're all right. So like in the areas, you do a lot of map studies, so a lot of, research leading up to before you even get on the water. But like once you're, on the water and you're looking at those areas that you want to check out, do you rely heavy on electronics to scope that area out, or is it you do rely more on like just your basic instincts as an angler? I mean, of course, there could be a combination of both, but is there one that you lean towards more than the other?
I've always been big on my electronics, and I've worked pretty hard to feel really confident with them. So that's something I rely on heavily. But also I just kind of let the fish tell me what they want, or if they're even there a lot of times. So yeah, it's definitely a little bit of both, but I'm pretty confident with my electronics. I know what I'm looking at when I see fish or whatever. Water temperature is big always, to let you know what the fish are potentially doing. But then when it comes down to it, you kind of need them to tell you what they're doing, what they're in the mood for. Yeah.
That makes sense. So here's an interesting topic, and I've seen both sides of it a lot being talked about lately. And it was brought up the other night when our buddy Drew Gregory and Zach Hall and myself did a myths and misconceptions show on kayak fishing. And one of the biggest things people talk about with kayaks, which is true to a point, that it's able to help you slow down and like pick apart an area. But I think there's also exceptions to that where you can run and gun with a kayak very easily. But so there's two sides of it there where I've seen people talk about, if I don't get bit in an area in 15 minutes, I'm gone. But then there's people that say, I know there's fish here, so I will slow down if I'm getting bit like once an hour type of deal. Like, which one are you? Are you one where like if you're not getting bit in 15 minutes, you're gonna keep moving on, or you just want to when to hunker down? Like, what's your rule of thumb?
Yeah, if I know the fish are there and I'm doing the right thing and I'm not getting bit, I'll just hunker down and fish and. That's one of the things. Road beds are one of my favorite things to fish, and you're not going to get bit a lot of times on them, but you're going to get some of the right bites. And a lot of times it's hard to stick it out for 5, in a day. But sometimes I'll try to find something close by where I feel like I could fill a limit, and then I'll feel a little better about sitting out there. But I remember the Crossroads Kayak Classic that I won on Newton Lake in Illinois, and one of the guys out there. I guess it was kind of one of his home lakes, and he was like, man, I went there and watched you fishing that road bed out there. And he's like, I don't know how you do it. He's like, I don't know. That was the slowest, most painful fish I've ever seen. I was like, man, I knew they were there. I just knew I just had to give it some time and get the bait in the right place, and I'd get them to bite. So at one point during the day in that tournament, I remember looking up, and the second day there was a boat tournament, and I expected some of them would get out on that roadbed, and they all fish shallow. But at one point, I look up and I see 2 boats on one side, 2 boats on the other side. None of them are fishing. They're all just standing there watching me, trying to figure out what I'm doing. so,
That's interesting.
yeah.
Like from a like a good they're not just like
It was a
trying to hawk you down, or they were like just
I think they
genuinely
were just
curious?
really didn't know what I was doing. Like the roadbed wasn't on any map or anything that I had found. But when I was actually on the phone with Mel Ash when I found it, and I go, "Hey, I just won this tournament." And then I cast out there, and I caught a 22 or something. He's like, "Really?" And I caught a 22 on the first cast. Like, "Yeah, I just won." He's like,
That's
"All
awesome.
right, yeah." So like, I actually the second day before I even had a limit, I chased a big 6-point buck around, and filmed it. You'd still see that. You can still
Do
see
you
that
have
video
that
on my
clip on your phone?
Instagram.
Oh, is
Yeah,
that
it's
your
on my Instagram. Yeah.
Oh, dude, I'm gonna have to find that. I'll be all over.
I didn't. That was day 2. I was leading it. And I still didn't have a limit. But I
Chase her
thought
around
that
a
was pretty
buck
cool.
instead.
Yeah, so I'm chasing it around, filming it.
Oh, dude, that's hilarious. I saw I can't remember who posted it because I don't think it was Bass. I think it was something on the fishing wire that was posted after you won. Yeah, you're right up for talking about the your win and how you won. And I believe they said you were throwing like a single swim bait, right? That you're creeping on bottom.
For the Bassmaster Championship.
Yes, yes. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, I was. Yeah,
Were you throwing that on spinning gear?
yes.
Oh,
Medium
that's
heavy. I had a 20-pound braid to a 12-pound fluorocarbon leader.
dude, that bite, like with a spinning rod and creeping a swim bait on the bottom, is my absolute favorite bite on planet Earth.
It was pretty awesome. It was
Like,
pretty, and those spots are mean. They're
dude, I
mean.
haven't done it for spots, but now that you say it, it's like got me
I had a
feeding
mix
for
of
that
spots
bite.
and largemouth, but yeah, those spots. I mean, I didn't have any margin for error with those things.
Yeah, well, what's cool about that bite, though? I mean, one being that it's just so dang fun because like you're sitting there counting rocks real and so slow, and it's like dunk, and it's like there's no
Hmm.
question what that is. Like you're just
Yeah.
going to reel and set the hook, but the hookup ratio on it is basically 100%. Like if
Right.
one gets
Yeah.
off, it's basically because either you didn't set the hook, or two, you have a dull hook, or you just don't have a hook.
Right.
Like beyond that, you're getting them to the boat as long as you don't have too much cover in the way. But dude,
Exactly.
that is such a fun bite. That's why
Yeah.
I had to ask if you're doing on throwing it on spinning or casting, because the people that throw it on casting, it's to me in my mind, I don't know, I'm weird. It's not as fun as spinning gear.
No, I like me some spinning gear. And with that hook I was using, like you said, that's part of what makes that 100% hookup is that real light hook. I was using that the 1/4 ounce ball head tungsten, the Kitech.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're throwing
And
the Kitech. Okay.
yeah, and that thing, I wouldn't throw it on a bait cast. You'd straighten it out, but you
Yeah.
get your drag set right on the spinning rod, you're gonna land pretty much every fish you hook.
See, I found so I've used the Kitechs. The one I love the most, especially for creeping on bottom, is the Owner Ultra Head football head that has a light 2-aught. You can use a 2-aught or a 3-aught hook, and that is my beyond favorite. Actually, I think I have one sitting right here. Where the heck is this thing? Here we go. I got one actually sitting right here. That sucker
Nice. Yep,
is
I've thrown
mean.
those. I've thrown those when I couldn't find my Kitechs. Actually, I think it was at lacrosse. I was throwing those.
They're the deal. Like that is
Hmm.
the swim bait had to be thrown. But talk to us a little bit about, and I'm sure you talked to a few folks since Gunnersville about your win, but talk to us a little bit about your recap and how you found success throughout the weekend. And obviously, you won day one, but you came in second overall for the tournament, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
talk to us
well,
a little bit about what happened.
so I went out to an area that I like on Gunnersville to usually like it to start because you could see a lot of shallow stuff and a lot of deep stuff and kind of, get an idea what the fish are doing. Um, so I usually start there. I saw a lot of fish shallow, not many deep at all. And as the week kind of progressed, I realized that it was a shallow bite. Those fish were on beds. Um, I wasn't sure how long they were going to be there, but I know Cody Milton himself found a pocket with, he said he had, I think, 50 to 70 beds marked with 4-pounders on them. Something stupid.
God.
It was more bed fish than I've ever seen in my life. So we hit it pretty much on the head.
Dang.
So I knew what I had to find to compete with him. I went out Wednesday. Me, Cody, and Christine ended up going to the same place, and we were real serious that day about about our pre-fishing. We went out there, we found some fish, and then I smelled some barbecue, and I called Cody and said, I'm going to eat some of this barbecue. It smells too good. And we go in there, and then we get up there, and they had some great beer. It was Back 40. It was called Truck Stop, and we called Christine. She came and joined us. She was fishing the area too, and we were just talking about how great it was. And then we finished eating, went out for about 20 minutes, and after about 20 minutes, we were like, okay, I can't stop thinking about that beer. Can you stop thinking about that beer? Like, no, I can't stop thinking about that beer. Like, let's just go back. So we ended up going back and sitting there and drinking all day. And I actually had spotted a 23-incher from before I went there and ate. And so I got a little video of Christine and Cody trying to catch it from the dock there. So that was pretty cool. We sat around and drank beers all day and talked about how we wouldn't forget this day of pre-fishing. And so that was a good day of pre-fishing.
So then, this whole podcast is that. That's how kayakers practice.
Right.
They go out for 20 minutes, they eat barbecue, drink, and then show up to fish.
Sometimes you got to cut loose, man.
Find the brewery that is on the lake, and you will find Eric in practice. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, sitting out on the on the balcony, going, "Yep, that's where I'm going tomorrow."
Yeah,
he's double
from
fisting.
here.
There's a fish on that log over there.
Double fisting. Is that a catfish or is that a bass? I can't tell.
Yeah. So the next day I went out. Now I went to an area I'd never fished on Gunnersville, which at this point there aren't a lot of those. And it ended up being the busiest ramp that I had seen. But I ended up going out there, and I got a hold of a 23 and kind of saw what I liked. So I decided to go back there Friday, and got out there. And actually, when I went to go out Friday morning, I realized I'd lost my Yak Attack net, which I've had for about 8 years. My Yak Attack landing net. Love that thing. It's so I was like pretty bummed out about that. I'm like, I'm gonna go out there and see if I could find it. And I headed to where I caught that 23 because it was some gnarly stuff. I thought maybe it got pulled out of the kayak. I had laid it down at one point. Couldn't find it. And went back to pre-fish. I'm like, I'm never gonna find it in this giant lake. So I go and I start hitting like every pocket, every place I wanted to go and look at on my map. I'd like, I want to check this spot out. There'd be at least one boat or at least one kayaker or multiple. So I'm like, all right, this is not going to work. So I go back to looking at my phone. And I see this pocket up the river a little bit, and it was pretty choppy out there. So I was like, you know what? I bet nobody will go over here. And I like go under the bridge. It was a couple miles up, and did that. No boats, no kayaks. Pull in this little pocket with about 20 docks, and there was 2 to 4 or 5 beds on every single dock. And I was seeing, there was a bunch of 18 pluses, ton of 16, 17s. So what I started doing was when I'd see one of those fish that were 18 plus, I would go and mark the bed with on my Lowrance with like a specific waypoint. There's all kinds of emojis on Lowrance. So I'd mark one with a sun, for example, and I would put a little note on my phone like, sun, blue behind the blue dock on the walkway between the second and third post. And I would mark all the best fish that I saw on beds like that. And there was one dock at the end that had at least 3 over 18, it looked like to me. One of them looked like it was definitely over 20. So I marked those, and I decided I was going to start there in the morning. And so I actually went back to the ramp, and I was kind of messing around with a little bait. I was thinking about throwing in the bed. I was trying to figure out how I wanted to rig it. And then I'm just standing there at the ramp. I'm flipping at this riprap there, and I happen to look over, and I see my net floating there in the water. Just the back of it is sticking up. I'm like, get out of here. I go pick it up. I'm like, this is going to be a good tournament for me to find this net on Gunnersville.
Wow.
So I was feeling pretty good right away after that.
That's
That's
really
a good omen there.
Yeah, Gene Jensen walks up. He's like, looking at, he's like, "What are you throwing there?" And I'm like, "Dude, I had told him, I was like, I just found my net right here." He's like, "Right there?" I'm like, "Right here." I was feeling pretty good already. So next day, I go out, head straight to that dock, and start out with a jackhammer. There was one bed like that was right against the dock, and it was kind of open area, so I just ran it right by there and hooked into 18 and a quarter right away. And then I pulled back around, and the big one was on the middle on a couple tires that were there. So I flipped the Cinco over there and just let it sit, dunk, set the hook. It was a 20 and a half, and then went over to the other side of the dock where there was another one. Flipped the Cinco over there and caught it was a 17 something, and then moved around to the next good waypoint I had and caught snuck back there between these docks and flipped over there and caught a 19 and a half, and then picked off another 17 something that way. And I had the limit I stayed with all day, I think, for after an hour and a half.
wow.
So yeah. So and then I actually went pre-fishing again and just ran some pockets on the main lake, see if I could find maybe some bigger fish, like one big fish even on a bed, something like that. And never really found anything. Came back to check the area out, and I left some beds that were like behind some docks that boats couldn't get to. They were just so tight, there was no way a boat could get back there. Um, and then I was seeing a lot of eelgrass and debris that was getting kind of pushed back in there into that pocket, and that kind of had me worried for the next day. So I ended up winning that first day. Went back out the second day, and it was kind of what I thought. There was a bunch of stuff in there, and we had some bad weather that was coming in too. So that was in the back of my mind. I kind of realized pretty quick a lot of that loose eelgrass had gotten around those docks and on top of those beds, and it was just going to be hard to fish. So I started throwing a jackhammer out like in the middle of the grass, in the middle of the pocket, out in front of all the docks, and I picked off 18 something, 16 3/4, doing that, and then the weather hit, and it was bad. I could just see white caps. Like I was the 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 main channel came in. I was back in this pocket, and I could just see white caps just flying through. The wind hitting it and just pushing spray everywhere. It would look terrible. I was like, I'm never leaving this pocket if this doesn't stop. I'm gonna be sitting in here all day. There's no way I'm going out into that. So I kind of just, I just kept casting around, never got anything. There was a boat had actually come back there, and he wasn't going anywhere either. So we're just kind of stuck back there together. And finally, it did quit, and I was able to come out and hit another pocket. That there was a couple boats in, and every time I went to look at it on the first day, but because of that weather, I think that kind of kept them out. And so I pulled back into there, and my first fish, I was fishing to get some riprap. My first fish was a 19 and a half. And after that, it was just on. I probably caught 25 fish, like going the rest of the day in that area. They were just stacked in there. Caught a couple on a mag draft even. Ended up holding on to second in the Pro Series. Dylan Lowry crushed it up north and pulled ahead of me in the Pro Series and took first. But
yeah, he was fishing more like
fun.
river stuff, right?
Yeah, he was
Like current based stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I want to go back to one of the points you made when you first got to Gunnersville. Is that you checked a more popular area? I think is how you described it, to get a feel for what fish were doing. Because I think the way you're describing it sounds like it's like a community hole. Is that correct?
Yeah, Gunnersville is a community hole, I think, at this point.
It's just fair. It's awesome. Is that something you'll tend to do in tournaments? Like if you don't have to, like just to get a quick idea of what's going on, is hit the biggest or the bigger community holes in that lake just to get a feel for what's going on?
Yeah, definitely. And in an area, that has a little bit of everything. I don't have to go far to I know areas that, especially Gunnersville, like something I'm used to fishing. I know that area that will hold deep fish, and there's areas that'll hold shallow fish, and I can get a good idea of what the fish are doing by fishing an area where I can. There's also bridge there, which is big on Gunnersville, so I was able to check that, see if maybe that was a possibility for a bite. So I was able to check out a few different things. That has docks and grass and everything. So I was able to kind of get a feel for what was going on just by going to that one place on the first day.
When you get on the water and you get to your first, your first spot or a spot that you want to start practicing on, are you are you just going casting full speed, trying to cover water, eliminate the water? Are you picking it off methodically, trying to catch a fish or two to see what's there? Like, how are you attacking that area that you want to go fish? Not non-spawn, right? Not where you can see, but let's say spawn's over, pre or post. How do you attack that area?
I always fish pretty slow. A lot of guys are that run and gun style. That's not really me. I like to, see if I get them to eat a jig. I love catching them on a jig, so I always check and see if I can get them on that. Try to see if they'll eat something that I like to throw first, which is a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I'm not big on throwing would be like crankbaits. I'm not big on treble hooks at all. So if I catch them on a single hook, that's kind of that's kind of my favorite thing to do. So I'll try to find something. I'm pretty methodical. I remember coming out of a pocket on Gunnersville actually, probably 4 or 5 years ago, and boater was coming out of the pocket and or trying to come in to fish it, and he goes, "You just fish all the way through here?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'll fish behind a boater, but I won't fish behind a kayaker. You guys don't leave any meat on the bone." And I was like, "You don't even know. I don't definitely don't leave any."
The smart man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you tend to fish start off, shallow to deep, shallow and deep relative to what you say it is, but do you tend to fish shallow to deep, deep to shallow, or do you stay in an area? How do you attack different water levels, water columns?
Um, I I like to fish. I don't know. I mean, I'll fish shallow if they should be shallow. I like fishing deep because those generally are less pressured fish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's necessarily the case with live scope and everything anymore, but
Yeah.
that's that's one of the reasons I've always liked to go deep because it's fish that other people don't know how to find or fish for or whatever it is. They're going to be a little less pressured, but you know I don't know. I think it could be flipping with all the live scope stuff to where some of the shallow fish are less pressured even. So
It seems
uh,
like that the more south you get is the more these offshore fish are getting more pressured. But I completely agree with you in terms of the less pressure from, at least from a kayak standpoint, is I feel like the offshore isn't going to get touched as much in a kayak tournament. There's only a select few that I think can successfully find fish offshore. But the further south you, like on Eufaula, take that Eufaula for example, or at Gunnersville, like offshore is no secret down there anymore. Like every boat and their mother knows what the offshore spots are. They're getting pounded. It's almost like you're more advantageous to be up shallow at this point
right.
because it's getting less pressure, at least from a south standpoint. The north
One
people still don't leave 5 foot of water for some reason.
Right. Those fish, I think, especially on lakes that are heavily pressured, like Gunnersville, I feel like I don't know, but I feel like they know when they're getting live scoped. Like from like my limited experience, but when I was watching them, I was watching them on my live scope in an area that I fish a lot, and it was just loaded with fish. And I'm watching them. Felt like every time I got them on there, and I was fishing. Been fishing about 45 minutes and couldn't get these fish to eat. And it felt like every time I got them on, they would take off. And I was like, what the heck? So I shut the thing off and made a cast. Next cast caught a 20 incher. I was like,
Dude, that's a real thing. Like that's I was talking with Adam Reiser at the registration for Eufaula, and he mentioned because I was telling him I really want to go fish Lanier, and he has a good amount of experience on Lanier. And I
right,
was asking about forward facing, and he said that those fish, because like just like a 2D where fish can feel 2D under the boat, the fish can feel forward facing, like especially when they get so accustomed to it. Where
hmm
guys on Lanier now will have to, like, you point that forward facing, you find fish. As soon as you find them, you make that cast and you point that stuff away, and you rely on
right,
your own instincts as an angler because those fish can feel it. So exactly what you're talking about when you keep that forward facing sonar on them, like over time, with how much people are using it and how accessible it's become, those fish are getting accustomed to it.
Yeah.
And it's pretty crazy to see that, which I think that is completely debunking people's theory on forward facing being basically cheating. It is up north because our fish are still stupid as heck, but
right. Yeah. It was funny. Yeah. A guy who came into one of my spots was running it, and I was like, man, this was what was this? This was at Santee on day 2. A guy pulled into my spot, and I was like, man, you need to turn that stuff off. I think they might be able to feel it. This is before I even had mine, and I'm like, I've been hearing that they, and I know exactly where they're at. They're right here. There's no reason to have it on. And he's like, they don't know. They can't feel it. He's like, I haven't had any problem. And he's from up north. And I was like, those northern fish probably don't have a clue what's going on. But these fish, I scoped all the time. There's no reason to have it on in here.
Yeah.
Well, these fish down here get pinged enough. They're probably going to start having some kind of growth occur that we're going to be inspecting here in the next few years. Can't even eat them. Oh, yeah, that's a live scope fish right there. It's got a arm coming out of its dorsal fin.
Yeah, like those Ohio River fish, they've always said they're okay to eat once a month or something like that. I was like, anything that has that kind of regulation on it, I don't want to eat at all.
Oh, gosh. No, thank you. That's hilarious about that. Dude, it's become so crazy to see. I mean, that's a whole other conversation. And I feel like I've said it a bunch of times on this show where I don't want to start talking about forward facing because I'll start going on about it for 2 hours, where people have been using it for freaking spawners now. Like Luke Palmer, who got, I think he top 5 at Santee Cooper event for the elites, had a 33-pound bag bed fishing cypress trees with forward facing sonar. Like he made 10, 15 flips on one cypress tree where if you without it, you'd go by that cypress tree, make, a couple flips and then keep moving on once you get bit, but he could see him on landscape versus just forward. But it's crazy because there's times where, like you said, it's super important to, completely turn your electronics off. But then there's times up north where it does not matter. You can literally be on top of them and they don't it doesn't affect them. But
right. I know,
something will come along that'll change.
You saw Drew Cook won that one. That was cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
We hung out with them after the Bassmaster.
That was a fun night as well.
That was.
That was our Bob Cobb night that I don't think we'll tell on this. We'll leave that for behind the scenes. But
Drew Cook had me rolling that night though.
That was a fun night. That was a good one. I can't remember how I found you.
I think I wandered in that hookah bar you and the Hummingbird guys were in.
Oh yeah, and it was actually really funny. One of the guys from the Hummingbird team, he's new to fishing. He's great at his job, but he doesn't know everyone in the industry yet. And my buddy and I were watched a few guys walk by. I think you had came in. Well, you and I were chatting, and then Ike walks by, and we're like, "Oh, there goes Ike." And the guy's like, "Who?" And we're like, Ike and Ellie. He goes, "I don't know who that is." And we're like, "What?" And we just got done talking about how people are so gullible, and I'm the worst at it. You could tell me gullible's written in the ceiling, and I'm the first one to look. And I was like, "You're screwing with me, right?" And for 30 minutes, I wouldn't believe this dude that he didn't know who Ike was, but he really didn't know it. I thought he was screwing with me, but. Yeah, so here we go. Rabbit holes. We're already getting down more.
Yeah.
So here's another question I have from a kayak standpoint, because this is a decision I think is, from a kayak fishing standpoint in practice, and tournament wise, it is so much harder to make decisions because it carries much heavier of a weight in terms of, if you want to go 2 miles one direction, you're taking a good decent chunk out of your day. So the decisions you make in practice and on tournament day weigh much heavier on yourself in a kayak than a boat. So my question is, when do you know in practice, when to completely ditch an area, write it off? I know you said if you find an area that has fish in it, you'll stick it out as long as you can. But when do you pull that trigger to leave?
A lot of times it's kind of a gut thing. If I'm thinking about an area and I can't get it out of my mind, then I've got to go look at it. And you know, I mean, there's a reason for it. Especially a lot of times if I'm in an area that's busier than I would like it to be, even if I've got fish there, I'll roll to try to find, you know, I've got that if I have to, but I'd rather go try to find something more to myself, you know, type thing. Try to duplicate whatever pattern I had figured out somewhere where there's less people around to share that I have to share a fish with and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, that's
That makes sense.
one thing I think about.
I think that's the biggest decision that people have to make that I think burns people and also helps some folks is, excuse me, that patience can be a virtue, but also knowing when to pull the plug. Like
Right.
that's probably the hardest, decision to make as tournament anglers, regardless of the vessel you're in. But
I mean, one example of that would be when I won the first Hobie on St. Clair, and I came second the year before fishing an area that and didn't hardly have anybody. I think it was one other boat in the area, and then there was probably 15 on the first day of the tournament. And you couldn't pre-fish the Canada side, so I got as close as I could to the Canada side and actually found some fish on the American side in practice. So I went over there and I was fishing day one of the tournament, and I remember I had just caught a fish. It put me around like just under 90, and I look up and I just see like I count 10 to 15 boats, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to upgrade, like get what I need here. I know I fished St. Clair enough that I know you're going to have to hit at least 93, 94 to have a chance on the second day.
yeah,
And I didn't feel I was going to be able to get it. So that's when I made the move over to my American side spot, which that time of year when the Canada side is just open, those Canada fish are pretty stupid. They haven't seen anything, so so it's kind of hard to leave those fish. But I went over to the my American side fish, and I was able to upgrade to about 96 and a half in the last hour and a half. I think I culled every one of my fish except for one, and put myself in first place going into day two, and was able to hold on and win it on that spot again. I started out fishing those Canada fish just to kind of give those guys a little competition out
Mhm.
there, not make it too easy on all those guys that were fishing on
I
those
love
fish,
that
and
you're
then
pointing that out. That there's Northern stupid and then there's Canada stupid. And that's a shout to all my Canadian buddies that listen to this. Is yes, I'm calling you dumber than us.
you're getting 1 star and bad reviews tomorrow.
No,
Whenever
that's
this
fine.
hits.
All my Canadian buddies
Hey,
probably
he
already
brings
gave it
up a
a
good
star.
point. Eric brings up a good point right here too, that goes into practicing, and that is history and knowledge of the body of water you're on, and how you practice for that versus if you've never been there before. So he had an area close to where he was fishing that he knew he could go to that holds fish.
Mhm.
And you'll hear the pros talk about this on the Elite Series when you have a new guy come in, and how a lot of them struggle with practice because they're going to bodies of water they've never been to, and so they don't even know where to start. And so it's all that dead water that folks that have been on a body of water before are able to eliminate, and they can kind of plan their practice around the areas that they know typically hold fish or they've caught their fish there before, and build a plan off of those areas. And it's interesting because that's the second time you brought that up. My experience at this lake led me to be in this area, and not necessarily that you caught your fish in the same place, but it put you in that right area where you were comfortable and kind of knew what was going on.
There's really no substitution for time on the water.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Experience.
and me traveling for all these years to all these lakes, and has really helped a lot to where it's got to the point where, I'm having this kind of year. And I mean, like Richard B. Russell, I'd never been to, so there's, but it still comes back to experience, like being able to break down a body of water before you get to it, and kind of figure out where the fish are going to be. Most of the time when I'm pre-fishing for a tournament, I'll end up fishing the tournament in the first spot I want to go look at. So there's something to be said for that. Like there's a reason why you started at that spot, why you picked that spot to go look at first. You know what I mean? So that's the way it works out a lot of times. So I mean, I still fish a lot of tournaments on lakes that I've never fished, and a lot of my wins over the years have come on, my first time at the lake. Table Rock, my first time there, I won. Lacrosse, my first time there, I won. Richard B. Russell, the first time there, I won. Stuff like that. So
So what
it's
you're
kind of a
saying,
double-edged sword
we
with.
should stop fishing tournaments at lakes we've been to.
Well, it's kind of a double-edged
quick.
sword for like people fishing memories. It can help, but it can also hurt you not being able to let something go where you've caught fish there before.
Yeah, the home lake advantage.
It helps to look at a place fresh. That's like I went to a place on Gunnersville I've never been to. I was like, where haven't I been on this lake? So that's where I ended up going and where I ended up fishing the tournament in an area I'd never fished before.
And time on water, though, lets you take a new lake and compare it to a lake you've been on. Like, this is similar makeup, watercolor, fish behavior, all that. It lets you, that's that experience, right? Maybe they set up like this. So when you go practice and you've got 4 or 5 days, you can go to those places that you have experience on another lake that's similar.
Right. You can draw
so the time on the
from
experience really does help it regardless. I mean, everybody says that's the factor for being successful.
Like a lot of those Tennessee River lakes fish similar. So you can draw experience from those lakes. When you go to those Highland reservoirs, you could kind of compare those type of lakes, or a big thing is like herring lakes. They kind of all fish similar and stuff like. So if you know what you're doing on one, you kind of. So, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, dude, what's coming up for you? Like, you got anything? What's next on the horizon for you in terms of tournament schedule and things you're looking forward to?
Broken Bow's coming up next. That's the Hobie event. So I've never been there. I heard from some of the guys who were there last year that it's a pretty cool place, but the roads kind of suck and they got their trucks beat up and stuff, and they're on a whole lot of ramps and all kinds of good stuff. Sounds like it's going to be a interesting week there. But I've also heard there's some good smallmouth, and me and smallmouth get along pretty well, so that could get interesting. After that, I've got Lewis Smith Lake, the Bassmaster. If I do well there, I'll give myself a shot going into Pickwick for Bassmaster AOI. So
hey, there you go.
That'll be interesting to see if I can keep that going. I missed the first Bassmaster tournament, so I got no room for error. The first one was on Lake Fork, and I was busy watching the Bengals make their Super Bowl run, so I couldn't make that one. So they had 5 tournaments and drop your lowest one, so Fork's my lowest. I don't have any room for error, but I got a 4 and at Harris and a 9 at Grand. So those were both actually 3-way ties that I ended up at the bottom of. So second became a 4th and a 7th became a 9th.
Man.
Yeah, that hurt, but that's all right.
Hey, as Classic Champ, do you automatically qualify for the Classic next year?
Yeah. I do.
Okay. So now you're fishing for AOI. That's AOI and wins.
Right. And it'll be interesting to see how they work out me handing the trophy to myself next year, because I'm supposed to hand it off to the next winner.
Hell yeah.
Confidence.
Hell yeah. I hope all y'all catch fish. I just hope they're smaller than mine.
Right.
That's right.
And Hobie World's coming up. COVID's finally letting us have Hobie World, so I'll be going to Sweden in August. So that'll be pretty cool. Yeah, I have a chance to be world champion on top of Bassmaster champion. So that'll be cool.
Heck yeah, dude. So you fished? Okay, yeah, you fished Santee. How'd you do at Santee Cooper?
Santee, I had a okay day 1, and day 2 wasn't so much fun. I kind of got raced to my spot by somebody who knew I was fishing there, and it happens.
I've heard a similar story of this happening at Eufaula from our buddy Mr. Nolan Miner, who is going to have quite an interesting video on such, because it's all documented. So
it's not out yet.
It's not out yet. Trust me, when it's out, I will show it to the world when it's out, because the story he told me at awards was like, that's a thing. Like, people did, like, somebody
it's
had
happened a couple times this year.
And then old Jeremy.
I just got this in the mail today,
though. His ass up.
There you go.
Nice.
Heck yeah.
That's
just
awesome.
came in the mail today, so that was pretty cool. They sent me a bunch of extra copies, so
Heck yeah, dude.
that was cool.
Well, keep up the grind, and hopefully
I can't find the picture, but that was my son at the Hobie booth the night after you got the trophy. Walked up and he was like, "I got a picture with the champ."
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's pretty sweet. It's got to be. It's cool to see kayak anglers getting more recognition from that standpoint too.
Mm-hmm.
Like where people are coming up and they're recognizing you from a fan standpoint, not just like a angler to angler, like, hey, I know you're Eric Siddiqi, but it's more of like, hey, I keep up with you in like your travels, and that's got to be something that's pretty rewarding.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty cool to see.
Yeah,
especially even seeing a lot of the boaters recognizing us and paying attention now is cool to see. So a lot, I was hanging out there when Christy was winning, hanging around backstage, and a lot of the guys were congratulating me and stuff. So that was pretty cool.
Heck yeah, it's cool to see how many more people are starting to pay attention to it all. It really is. But dude, keep grinding away, and I'm sure I'll see you more at some of the Hobie events coming up the rest of the year, and hopefully get your butt in the TOC and split a house for that shindig, so that I'll follow you around and cat it. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't. But either way, buddy, I'm looking forward to seeing you real soon.
Yeah, you too, man. Definitely.
Yeah, appreciate you joining us on here. I know a lot of people look to you for advice, obviously, because you've had a lot of success in terms of, regardless of the tournament trail that you're fishing. So it's good to get you on here, talk a little practice with you, and dig into that championship brain of yours.
Yeah, I had a guy come up to me day two after Gunnersville was over and say he only cashed a check because of what I said when I got up there the first day talking about docks. He said I had a bunch of docks by me and went over there and caught a big bass off of one and was able to cash a check. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it's cool until that guy beats you because of your
own right. Yeah. Well, I put Todd Patrick. I told him to go check out a spot, and he's like, "Oh, there's giants everywhere." And I was talking to him during the tournament. I'm like, "What you got?" He's like, 91.5. And I'm like, 91.5? Jeez. I was like, if you beat me, I ain't sending you anywhere else.
Yeah.
And he goes,
"You're not getting more spots out of me."
And I was like, "What do you got?" And he starts naming off. I'm like, "That's not 91.5. And he's like, "Oh yeah, it's 81.5. I'm like, "How are you off by 10 inches? You have some idea." Like, I don't know what's going on, but you're gonna have to whatever school you went to, let me know. I'm not sending my kids there.
Yeah. Oh man, that's good. Well, dude, I appreciate you taking time. I know you've had a pretty busy day, and it sounds like a pretty busy past 2 months. So we're gonna let you off the hook here to go enjoy the rest of your night. But dude, seriously appreciate you joining us, and hopefully get you back on here soon.
No problem. Thanks for having me on. Good talking to you, Jabber.
Jabber.
Yeah, man. Look, I was given this name because I talk a lot, and apparently at one point I caught a big fish, and somebody told me it was a damn Instagram post about a jabberhammer, and so it's kind of stuck.
There you go.
Those are worse nicknames.
It's true.
I've been called worse by better, so it's all good.
All right, boss. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon, Eric.
All
right, man.
Buddy, I appreciate you stepping in tonight. It was a fun episode with Eric talking some more kayak fishing and talking because practice, dude, it's like it seems like such an easy concept for folks to practice, but it's the decisions you make in the kayak are so much heavier than when you got a 250 strapped to the back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and you can relate it to somebody spending 2 hours making a run, going through a lock, and having to do that to us going 5 miles, without a motor. And they got motors now running 6 miles an hour, but for most of us, we're able to pedal for 2 or 3 miles at 4.5 miles an hour, and then you start tapering off. So you can. And it's not a far run. And, these big boats are making these long runs because shit's just not all together all the time.
Dude, I always feel weird about using the term run in a kayak. Like I call Andy a bunch throughout practice, not like because a lot of these places, like, I mean, for one,
Yeah.
Andy can't give me info on because one, he's just never been there.
Right.
So it's a waste of time. And two, I suck with info. Like, I do worse when I have info.
Yeah.
I have to, but I call Andy all the time when I'm practicing for a tournament. Especially like you follow, just because it's a peace of mind. Somebody I can bounce stuff off, like with Drew Gregory. Like Drew and I are on complete opposite spectrums of how we fish. So he's a good person to call. You know, we call each other all the time because we bounce ideas off just to have someone to discuss with. It helps you mentally. And I forgot where we're going with that.
Making a run. You feel weird
sorry.
saying making a run.
Yeah. Good guy. I totally forgot where I was going. Don't you hate that? But yeah, I'll talk with Andy and I'll be like, yeah, I made a run over here. And he's like, a run? And I was like, yeah, like half a mile.
It took 30 minutes. The wind was blowing in my face.
Right.
You know.
Yeah,
it is. But that's how it goes. Yeah, practice is different in a kayak. Again, the area you're trying to cover is going to be small. I mean, but you're still fishing regardless of what you're in. You're still fishing the water pretty much the same way. You have a lure on a rod and a reel that you chunk up in the water. Either you reel it in or you bounce it in. I mean, that's what it comes down to. You're still fishing the same water, the same reason, the same way. Yeah. And that's what it comes down to. And you can't catch fish where fish ain't. And that's what we're doing in practice. We're trying to find where the fish are. Because if they're shallow today and on tournament day they're not there, they got to be somewhere nearby, just maybe a little deeper or up the bank. So it's finding fish. You can't catch them if they ain't there.
That's right. Dumbing it down, making it as simple as it can be. Mm-hmm. But buddy, I appreciate you joining us. I know you got to run here soon, but real quick for the folks, what's coming up with you and the Bass and Brews podcast? Where can people find that?
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's always great. It's awesome to be on Serious Angler. One of the podcasts looked up to when I got into kayak fishing, and then obviously when I got on Bass and Brews, we got you and Andy on, so it's been great. Bass and Brews, we put out an episode a week. We might have some here and there that's coming up. Alex is in town now, our guest co-host, the guy who started it. And he's going to be gone again for a few months. So it's just going to be me with some guest co-hosts and our guest. And, if you hadn't listened to it, check it out. It's Bass and Brews podcast. It is not safe for work on speaker. You put your headphones in. It is not family friendly. Yeah. But we have a good time. We do talk fishing. We have a good time with it. And, it's long form. It could be an hour and a half to 2.5, 3 hour podcast, but it's a good time. Coming up, I don't know, man. We don't plan too far ahead, so I'm not sure what's going on. But just tune in. Apple Podcast, Spotify, all that good stuff. It is on Swamp Rat Fishing on YouTube, but we also have a Bass and Brews YouTube we just started, so stuff will be going on there. And check us out. It's a good time. It's a little bit different podcast. There's a lot of good information, but you have to pick it out in between the picking, the chaos, and the shit talking, and the tangents that go nowhere.
Heck yeah. I will leave that down in the show description for folks they can go follow it on social media and then figure out where to get it link-wise to MP3 and YouTube. So folks don't have to go and find on their own. Just go down the description. You guys can check it out. But, buddy, I appreciate it. We're going to wrap it up right here. And, folks, we will see you guys again next week for Tuesday Night Live.